Lots of folks coming online. Neat video there. Brian's always teasing us with all his tech there.
G'day.
Indeed.
Hi,
Early
Andrew.
morning.
Welcome.
Oh, yeah.
What time is it by you, Andrew?
1 a.m. Sunday.
You're dedicated. You are dedicated.
Oh, well, I thought it's an important one. I missed a couple of meetings. Yeah.
Are you affected by any of those fires, or is that kind of out of the way from you?
Oh, no, that's on the other side of the country. Yeah, it doesn't rain here, so we don't get affected by fire. How do I turn this?
It works.
Okay.
Ah,
Hey,
here we go.
Mr. Santa.
Hello, Richard.
Well, welcome everybody. There's a pile of stuff that people want to talk about, and I think we've had some winter weather in some parts of the world and some probably nicer weather in other parts of the world. So we'll get started. The first thing on the discourse group was machine control. That's what we wanted to talk about. So we've got I have an hour slotted here. We'll start in, we'll maybe try and spend 5 to 10 minutes kind of on each topic, and I'll try and kind of keep things moving through that. So should we dig in right there on machine control and just kind of a discussion on how we think that should move going forward? So anybody jump in.
Well, I should probably say where version 4 is at. Would probably save a lot of discussion. Right now, I mean, the PGNs themselves hasn't really changed much. Can everyone hear me?
Yep.
Yep.
Yep, okay. What I did do was take the relay stuff and the U-turn and took that out of the auto steer PGN so that the steer PGN is just auto steer, which makes sense because that's what you want to control. And then the machine control, it's no longer called relay, it's called machine control, is stuff like the U-turn and hydraulic up, down, section control, and that sort of thing. And I wonder if I could share my screen. But basically, you can, using a checkbox, you can say, I want just the auto steer PGN to go to auto steer, and that's it. Or you can also click select and send the auto steer PGN and the relay PGN and kind of anything you want to send anywhere like UDP does naturally. So I took all the limitations out of it basically. So anything can go anywhere.
So,
Mic drop.
That's what it is. Yeah, very cool. So just, I guess, to bring everybody up to speed in case like a PGN as far as like a parameter group number, we're talking that we're setting that out, and it'll be just like UDP, and you can, anything coming in can just sort of real time be updated. Is that a good way to describe it or summarize, or?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
It's just a string of control characters that, you know, you want to turn 10, make the steering wheel turn 10 degrees, so you send it 10 degrees. With all the other information, like how far are we away from the line, you know, is the switch and button engaged? It's just the communication between like AgOpenGPS and the modules it's trying to control, and you have to talk to them somehow. And you can either do it via serial port like USB, or you can send it over UDP over the Ethernet.
Mm-hmm. So the board that we're looking at right now that you have, you're doing that via USB, is that correct? Or is it via?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
and promising.
So yeah, I mean, the way it's hooked up right now, the pot isn't connected to the, like the potentiometer here is just like your wheel angle sensor. Oops. It's like your wheel angle sensor. So as it moves more one way or the other. It's not connected, so there's no feedback. Now it's lined up. And you can see that it's going the wrong way as you, but we'll get to that when we go into Arduino settings in AOG. Or should we talk about that now?
Yeah, we can move. Let's do that. Let's move right to that. I like that idea.
I'll get set up if you want to talk about something else in the meantime.
Okay. So there was another question. Maybe we can talk about that a little bit about UBX parsing from the uBlocks GPS units and bringing that into AgOpenGPS. So if there's some thoughts on that, I know Matthias had done quite a bit of work on that and is doing some testing, but what are people's thoughts there as far as bringing a UBX sentence into AgOpen with dual antenna?
Well, Daniel sent me a test version with 2 COM ports in AgOpenGPS to connect both F9Ps. And I told him that I had two of those boards, so he asked me to test it, but I haven't a third, so I can test it without my base station to have accurate testing, and it's on the roof and everything. So I sent him to Matthias and asked if he wanted to test it. I don't know if he already did and if it worked, so maybe he can explain.
Is he on here today? Matthias? Oh, there he is.
Yeah, I just tried. I haven't tested the thing. It's a UBXParse you talked about.
Yes.
Yes, UBXParse, yes.
No, I haven't tested. When we use the dual heading stuff, we have to do some calculations and some checkups before we send it to AgOpenGPS to have a fallback solution if heading from dual GPS will fail. And I tested this with my code, and maybe when it's okay, I can put it on GitHub, and then we can discuss this on Telegram.
That's
Okay.
your own version, or is that the version Daniel created?
Yeah, the version of Daniel is also this one with the multi-boundary, isn't it?
I don't know if it has multiple boundaries. I only know he created one with 2 COM ports available.
Okay, I haven't checked.
I don't know if he's here. I think not.
Okay. Is there any other thoughts on UBX parsing, or do we want to hold off on? Yeah, Johannes.
Yeah, I would say besides the technical implementation, I guess it's of course it's possible, but I think it's let's say it philosophical question if we want to build in some product-specific GPS stuff inside AgOpenGPS, because I guess most of the people using currently the F9P and uBlocks, but do we want to support this specific company so strongly? Because if in a few months, years, another company makes some better product, it gets harder if something is tied into the main product and not if external Arduinos, ESPs, or whatever, and just feeding the information some sort of sanitized into AgOpenGPS.
Yeah, you got a good point there.
Yeah,
I put as output also the GTA, the VTG, and HDT. So you don't actually need UBX.
Oh, that's great. That's excellent. Yeah. I think that's probably, I really like what you're saying there too, that we don't want to necessarily endorse one commercial company and spend a lot of time doing that, right? We want to keep it open, I think would be the goal. So, but at the same time, I guess we're just maybe moving along to what a lot of people are using for a GPS source, but I totally see what you're saying. It's a really great point.
Yeah, I think 99% uses F9P except Brian. He's still got the Outback one.
I still use the simulator.
Yeah.
Well, I think like it's pretty simple for AgOpenGPS, its specification to say we need a GGA or a GGA VTG or a RMC NMEA sentence as input, and then leave it at that. I mean,
yeah,
again,
I totally understand.
The more settings you have and the more, like Matthias, I mean, you can certainly answer this question better probably than anyone. Is there timing issues by doing it in AgOpenGPS? Like, I really like the way you have the ESP32 between the two boards, generate a sentence, send that off to AgOpenGPS. You know, it corrects it, it does everything. I think that that is the almost the ideal system that you have there.
The synchronization between the two F9Ps, it's not the problem of the ESP, it's the problem of the F9Ps. When they're linked directly together by using their moving base solution, they do all the timing. So I'm out of this problem.
And it still is fast enough to get accurate data to AgOpenGPS because you insert another board?
Yeah, it's no problem. I get the position from the one F9P and heading from the other. I put these two sentences together to PAOGI sentence and transfer it. I think it's doable even in on an Arduino. It's strong enough.
Cool.
The other guy from Switzerland, I think he is, did this with an Arduino Mega.
You mean Andreas?
No, Franz Husch, I think.
Oh,
yeah.
He contacted me, and yeah.
Oh, cool.
Like,
The thing is, if we use other hardware like Arduinos or ESPs, we should make a solution where you can the user can download the thing on GitHub and unzip it and use the Arduino IDE to flash it on the chip, and that's all. The user shouldn't need to install extra libraries or things like that. It should be run kind of out of the box. Download, use the simple Arduino IDE, everyone knows, flash, that's all. That's why I have so much trouble with the Git user interface for the ESP, because it needs lots of extra libraries, and I kicked it off and used a very simple HTML web interface Coffee Track creates once.
Yeah, that's very cool. Just simple out-of-the-box solution. Planning.
Yep.
I think that's something that we really need to consider going forward is, you know, like Matthias has a good solution, 3 boards sandwiched together, and it works. Let's use it. Let's not make to try to adapt it to a Teensy and an 8266 and who knows what other kind of processors, and then we'll have 17 versions out there again. You know, if it works and it does work, then let's just use it the way that is. Spit out the right sentence, a corrected sentence, and it goes into AgOpenGPS. And then leave it at that. If someone kind of wants to go on their own and build their own stuff, no problem. But in terms of like AgOpenGPS, what you download, and that's kind of the point of version 4, is let's pare down the options so that when somebody asks a question, we know what they're talking about. If they're using dual antenna, we know they're using an ESP32 and 2 boards, or something from ArduSimple when it came out. I mean, if we bring two U-Blocks units into Windows, there might be timing issues. There might be all sorts of problems that we don't know about right now. To do that externally, AgOpenGPS is busy enough. If we can offload some of that stuff to the GPS antenna and it comes up with a sentence, I think that's ideal. Because then it doesn't matter if someone uses a Outback or a Trimble or who knows what, who cares what, a Garmin, it doesn't matter. As long as it accepts an NMEA sentence, we know it works.
Yeah, and we have a solution for one antenna. It's the version Coffee Track Road. So we can use the ESP32 with one receiver, and if the user wants to add another one, he can do an upgrade later on. And the Coffee Track version also supports the BNO and the MMA. So if one want to try with one receiver, we can use the Coffee Track version, and we can adapt it and clean up the web interface. And if the user has two antennas, he can use my solution.
Or if you want to use three antennas, or if you want to use three antennas, use ArduSimple's solution.
Yeah.
I was wondering, Matthias, can you still see the role in AgOpenGPS because you send the corrected sentence directly to AgOpen, and the role is predicted is corrected in the ESP, so the role doesn't have to recalculate in AgOpenGPS, but you can see or say an offset or everything or anything else in AgOpenGPS like we can do now.
Yeah, I sent the role to AgOpenGPS, and I don't know if you can see it natively or I've changed up OpenGPS. I don't know, but I think you can see it. If you put the check at role coming from UDP, I don't know exactly. I have to look at it.
No matter what, but
it works, and I set antenna height to 0, so AgOpenGPS won't correct the antenna's position twice, as the ESP already did, and so AgOpen can do side hill drift gain, side hill drift compensation by using role. If you set antenna height to 0.
Nice.
The answer is yes to your question, Richard.
Yeah.
Because
right.
It's part of that PAOGI sentence that Matthias puts together in the ESP32, and the role value is contained in that sentence. And then when you check use PAOGI, then it just uses it as information and not an actual role calculation. So it's displayed, and it can send it off to the Arduino sort of thing. It just doesn't correct the NMEA position because it knows that it's corrected coming in.
Yeah.
So it's really, really simple.
To
just have
question to the sentence, the PAOGI. It was developed by a user using the MNet system, and I think there's one field missing in our version. I checked Brian's parser in AgOpenGPS code, and I used this sentence. But has anyone the original one and can double check if it's really correct what we are doing? Has anyone the MLit code to see what they're really doing? I think there's at the end of the sentence there's one field missing. I don't know exactly. Can anyone check this?
Originally, Vader and I designed that sentence because he was coming out of the MLid reach using the onboard 9250. That's where that sentence originated from. And we just hauled together a bunch of fields. I mean, we can make it, we can change it to whatever you want. And I actually recommend that, Matthias, that you come up with a new specification for PAOGI so that it isn't quite as long, you know, kind of as short as possible. Like we just need roll and fix and position. We don't need numbers of satellites and all that other garbage that's in there because it's never right anyway. If we could get time and fixed position and heading and roll, just the necessary stuff, that's all we need. So
don't
you design a new one?
don't know, maybe, but I don't think it's necessary to short it up because the rest is all filled with commas, and that's all. So if I don't need the fields, I leave them blank. So no need to change if the sentence also works with Seria or other stuff. I don't know how common it is.
It's not at all. I don't think anyone uses it.
Okay. It would be no problem to generate GTA and the other sentences, but I like this sentence because you have in one sentence all the information. Yes. So the AgOpenGPS is very fast parsing it.
Yes, absolutely. So if you could design a good sentence and throw it up on Telegram, I think that's the way to go. I could change the code in AgOpenGPS to match the sentence, and we're good. And that's the sentence we use going forward.
Maybe we need a flag like heading and roll quality. I checked the heading and roll quality by comparing the distance given by the two cheap systems with the distance the user sets when setting up the system. So if the antennas are in real life 1 meter distance and the GPS signal is weak, the distance drifts about 1.5 meters, and so I know it's wrong. So you can kick off the roll because it doesn't work at all, and the heading is about it's okay when the deviation is about 20%. And I've put in this checkup. Maybe we can set a flag and send this to AgOpenGPS, so AgOpenGPS would know if it can use the heading and the roll, or if it should calculate the heading on its own by using the way traveling.
The fixes, yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
All right. I think we're going to kind of wrap up that discussion on UBX stuff for now, and we'll move on. Brian, you wanted to show kind of the Arduino side as far as through UDP, right? Is that what you wanted to do now, or machine control, or what did you want to move on to there?
Yeah, I'll just share my screen. Is that going to work? I can't see it anywhere. It's always behind everything. Can you guys see it now?
No, not yet anyhow. I guess while you're getting that up there, I think, Kurt, you had a question as far as when the dual antenna option would be available. And I think hopefully we kind of answered that question here in the last little bit. I guess you're on your own to use Matthias's code to get your own dual antenna thing working for now. But as long as your GPS sends and MEA sentences, you should be golden.
Okay, can you see my screen?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Okay, so this is the new, instead of typing into the Arduino IDE, we can set things accordingly if you're using the Cytron, or if you're using single or differential inclinometer using, whether you want to use X or Y axis, and then you can invert like on the fly. So right now, if I turn the pot this way, it's opposite to how it wants to go. So if all I do is click invert WAS, see, now it's going the other way.
Cool.
That's the wrong way. Sorry, it was the right way. Invert the wheel angle sensor. See, now it'll align. So same with inverting direction, inverting the roll. Like right now, the roll, if we go to the right, see it goes more negative, that's incorrect. Invert the roll, send it. Now you can see it's counting the other way. That's the second number here. That's the roll value. So now when we go to the right, it's positive. So there, right now it's as a button. So now it's off unless the button is engaged.
Yeah.
I don't know if you can hear the screaming. Here, I'll do this. There, now you can see that it's engaged like a switch would be. Select the button. Oops. And now it works like a button. Same will be the encoder. You can be able to set how many counts you want on your encoder. I don't have it hooked up to the interrupt, that sort of thing. Set your min and max speed. BNO, that's another discussion. Frickin' BNO. You guys know I hate that thing. It's my nemesis. It's my Will Wheaton, as Sheldon would say. So it works quite well. Even like the inclinometer, you know, even to use none. There, now it's back at 999. You know, the only trick is with the inclinometers that if you choose one of these, you have to go and reset the Arduino. But that's it.
I don't know if there's such a thing as like a virtual mic drop, but I think you just did it, Brian. That's really cool.
There, see now it's back to 0. Reset. And see now we're back to using the MMA. It took a bit of programming. Needless to say that all the uinos out there are officially outdated.
Great.
Do you integrate a poll telegram? Can you read the Arduino before opening the dialog box?
All the settings are stored in AgOpenGPS.
Okay, is it possible to poll them before?
Kind of read what's there to update your...
Because I normally really want to see what is on the Arduino and what it is actually using before I change something. It would be very helpful.
Yeah. Well, you know what it is. You know, because
I'm getting older, I forget 2 days later.
You know, like when you bring this, when you bring the thing up, like one of them has to be the boss. And if AgOpenGPS is the boss, then as soon as you click send, now you know exactly what the Arduino is at because it's just like this. And so the next time you bring it up, that is how your Arduino is set because you have set it. Does that make sense?
When changing the computer using on the tractor or changing the tractor with the same computer, it's mixed up. So I normally like to know what is on the Arduino, what values I'm actually using before changing them.
Well, then
I know it's hard, but
where it is saved.
We would save the vehicle as.
But saving it in the vehicle isn't a problem because usually you have more than one vehicle because you put a tractor and an implement in a vehicle together, and then if someone changes the settings, let's say with a plow, and has later the tractor with a seeder, then not the same information is saved.
Well, you save the implement separately from the. You save the tool separately from the vehicle.
Okay.
You know, like here would. You know, then here you can save as. We can save it as a monster truck. You know, and so now when we bring up those settings, well, that's not going to work because those are old versions that. But you can get that if you save the vehicle, you've also saved the Arduino settings. So if you go from a tractor to a combine, then and you've made your Arduino settings, just save the vehicle so that when you go back in the combine, you load all your settings, including the Arduino settings.
Maybe
as soon as
the
program starts up, it sends it. It sends it every time you start the program. It updates the Arduino. AgOpenGPS is in full control of the Arduino, so that every time you start the program, it sends that information to the Arduino.
Does it also do it when you load a vehicle?
Yes.
Yeah, and then should be another problem. But I understand Matthias's question if it can poll, but well,
Yeah.
as far as every time you load a vehicle or something or open the program, then you have always the actual data.
So here we load Matthias, and then we can load. Do I have any tools? Second version is the tool, and then you can load whichever environment you want. Like mode 2. Well, it's going to exit now. But stop.
Okay.
Closed. So I mean, you can save anything you want, and in any combination that you want. I can't see a limitation there.
Matthias, wouldn't you still be able to see it on the, as far as if you wanted to see what was on the Arduino, you could still go back to the Arduino IDE, couldn't you? And then just
No, if I set up some values like steer angel correction or things like that, and I close AgOpenGPS and use another computer and I reopen it and I want to reset it or retune it a little, I have to start from new because I don't know the values that are almost fitting. So I start from new. So it would be a good thing to pull the actual values and then it's easier for tuning.
That's true. Read it and then fill in AgOpenGPS with those readings.
Yeah, it's the same like the U center works. You have the settings on the chip on the F9P, and you connect it with the U center, and first you pull the actual settings, change them, and rewrite it.
Okay.
I know it's hard to do. It's the easy way you did it, but if you want to do a little tuning, and the values got lost, it's you start from new.
The settings are stored in the EEPROM on the Arduino. And maybe it shouldn't update the settings automatically. Like as soon as you start AgOpenGPS, the current settings are sent to the Arduino. So whatever was there is gone.
And you don't have any chance to get the values before, because you can't see them in the Arduino IDE. They are gone. If you write them, they are gone.
See, that's why I have that send button on there, is so that you can decide whether or not you want to update those settings.
In that case, get the data from the Arduino instead of sending it every time you open or load a field. Should be the idea.
Yeah, but we have to program a poll telegram, a poll sentence. So the same way back from Arduino to AgOpenGPS when opening the settings menu.
So that should be the only time it sends information.
Yeah, I think so.
When you want to.
Yeah, when I want to do fine tuning, I need to know what values I'm using actually. So in this moment, when opening the settings screen, the AgOpenGPS should ask the Arduino what are the actual settings I'm using, and then you can tune it and send it back, and you're safe.
We also have to store them.
Yeah, of course, in the EEPROM of the Arduino. Open the dialog box, pull the values from the Arduino to AgOpenGPS, handle them, change them, send them back and write to the Arduino's EEPROM.
You would still have to, like if you put in a new Arduino, there's nothing to read. So you still have to store them in AgOpenGPS in order to create a new Arduino.
Okay, I agree. but in this time the sentence will be empty. It's a question of the Arduino code. If you ask for data that he can't provide because the settings are empty, he doesn't send anything, and that's all.
Yeah, or he sends some more or less sensible default values.
Say that again.
Or the Arduino sketch can send, if it has nothing saved in the EEPROM, send more or less some default values. So something I think Brian is currently using when opening a new Arduino or new tractor, he has some sort of defaults. And that could of course be sent back from the Arduino if he has not been configured yet. I have my ESP version with my fancy web GUI and whatever, and I'm using the same trick. If the user has not entered some parameters, and I need some parameter, I set them to more or less sensible default values. And then the user can change them to whatever he wants.
Here's the EEPROM identifier. If position number 0 in the E squared prom isn't EDFD, and this used to be EDFE or something, then first thing you do is you read the EEPROM, and if it isn't that identifier, then you put the data in. Otherwise, just read it directly. Now, I don't know if Vader or who wrote the original software, but I didn't understand why using steering position was a deciding factor whether or not to write new data. It's kind of there's a lot of scenarios you can have with a steer module. You can have one that you want to program, so then you don't want to accept new information or read it or not, or where do you store it? Do you rely on the settings in AgOpenGPS, or do you rely on the settings in the Arduino? I'm going to have to think about this. There's a lot of combinations.
The ESP version of the AutoSteer software has also a web interface, so you can do settings at the web interface. And if you pull the data before changing it in AgOpenGPS, you will be safe. And next thing I want to suggest is to set a version number of data settings. So if you change the structure of data, you can check the version number if the data will be compatible with the actual settings.
Like this identifier.
Yeah.
Keep changing that identifier.
Yeah.
Could you set a vehicle as a poll vehicle, just so you load a vehicle just to pull data?
Yeah, well, as long as it's right and as long as it's actually programmed.
I guess if it's blank, it doesn't help. But if you wanted to check a vehicle with a new computer, could you just load a vehicle, pull data vehicle sort of thing?
Yeah, you should be able to. I mean, that's the beauty of loading a vehicle, and then it just automatically sends because it already knows what you need.
I think multiple things are the right way.
And I think it's in some kind of a philosophical question. If you say the Arduino is more or less part of the machine, so a bit like Isobus is thinking, there you have the different ECUs that are connected to a machine. So if you say the Arduino is part of the tractor, it makes sense to store the information for this tractor or for this machine in the Arduino or ESP or whatever, because it's a logical place to store the information about the machine is inside the machine. If you have the use case that someone is taking a box with a steering motor and running from one machine to the other, then of course the Arduino is the wrong place. And so I would say it's a question of Yeah, what's the idea of the right setup? Of course, we know we can make different, but if we say the Arduino is usually installed inside a machine and won't roam around different machines, then it's, in my eyes, logical to put the settings inside the Arduino, because tablets can be easily changed, and it might be the settings not really synchronized very nicely between them. But if you assume that the Arduinos change machines, then saving in AgOpenGPS is, in my eyes, better. But I would say usually the Arduino ESP, whatever is installed in the machine, and saving inside the machine is, in my eyes, a bit more logical, because if I throw all settings away, the machine has remembered what it's supposed to do.
We discussed this also on the Telegram group after last week.
Yeah.
About some sort of application that it was my idea to have first a form where you can select your vehicle and then start the program, and then it takes the selected vehicle settings with you into AgOpenGPS. But then because we have multiple users who don't use different tractors, just one, and then another thing to do before you can actually go and drive. But that should be an option in this thing.
We can a solution might be to have file extensions. If we have especially a Goblin file extension for a vehicle, you can put an icon on your desktop and double click it, and AgOpenGPS will load with this vehicle and this implement. Or we can have a file extension for fields. So if you double click this field, AgOpen will open with this field. This is a thing I would need for my dad. I put the icons of the fields on the screen, and he gonna double click the right field, and it will open, and that's all he has to do when it starts spraying. This would be a solution for this problem.
When can we expect to see that?
When one of the main programmers will do it.
It's a great idea. I look forward to trying it. Yeah.
Isn't it cold in Canada?
That is. It's only minus 30 this morning. It warmed up about 10 degrees.
Well, still very cold.
Well,
Okay.
I think we can probably talk about this a little bit more. Maybe we should push some more of that thinking off to another meeting. We've got about 15 minutes left. I just wanted to just quickly ask to I'll put a poll up in a minute. Curious if we can move this meeting time when we do video meetings to maybe like a Monday evening instead. I know Andreas said he'd like to be here, but Saturday's family day, and I think I'm in that park too. I'd be okay with like a Monday at roughly this time, maybe an hour later. But I might send that information around a little bit. And if we need to have meetings a little bit more often, say every 2 weeks or something, we can probably do that too. So that's going out there. One other thing that, while we're sort of in this topic of version 4, I guess, Brian, I think you had mentioned, oh shoot, I cannot find it now, but as far as your ideal setup, what do you think that should be as far as AgOpen? How do you see that? What was your dream initially, I guess, when is it a mobile or a stationary unit? Is it when you move around? What's your thoughts there?
I don't understand the question. Sorry.
Okay. Well, there's a couple of comments in the chat there as far as, do we see it as a tablet moving from one tractor to a combine to a sprayer? Do we see it as a control box, like your machine control box, let's say with the auto steer board, that's moving around? Or had you envisioned that one being stationary and the tablet moving? It sort of changes how, I guess, these Arduino settings would work then, right?
Yeah, it would. It's really hard to be everything to everyone. Like it really is. Usually when you think of auto steer, like an Outback or a Trimble or that sort of thing, I think most equipment in North America, the stuff is installed in a tractor and it stays there. You don't take it out.
Yeah.
Even it's built right in and it just stays there. I think if you have a bunch of little implements and you want to use a tablet, I don't see there being any limitation why you couldn't do that anyway. Because if you have the same tablet and you're carrying it around, then you have all the vehicles in the tablet. Load the right vehicle and then just use it. I think that's why I made the loading of vehicles and tools and environment really, really easy now, where it just comes up on a drop down, and it takes you 5 seconds to pick a vehicle and a tool, and you're ready to go.
Excellent. Yeah, that's, I guess that kind of sums it up, and that maybe answers some other questions as far as logistics and how things are set up, because I think that would, in my opinion anyway, that's the way I see it too, is the auto steer box and the section control, whatever else stays in that vehicle or that tractor or combine, whatever, and just you're moving your tablet and display around.
Yeah. I think considering the cost, why would you want to move an Arduino around?
Yeah, for 25 bucks.
Spend another $4.35 and build another one. Like seriously, it's not 3,500 euros for a box. You know, get it in there, wire it properly, minimize the connectors, install it in the vehicle, and leave it there. And then when the tablet is in there, save the settings for that vehicle, bring it up. You know, or just leave the thing in there, and then that's the vehicle that it just brings up the last vehicle anyway. Like for our air seeder, it's never going to change. It's always just going to be that air seeder, and that's all it's ever going to be. And the other thing is, if you have if you're replacing somebody's computer, I mean, you can put the vehicle on a jump drive and transfer it over to your computer, and now you have the vehicle. Like just copy all the vehicles and tools and environment to another computer, and then you just have it all. So it's not, you know, it takes an extra step. I think sometimes we try to eliminate all the steps and end up making more. When if we kind of just look at it as using it, you know, can we do it? You know, yes, we might need to make one more click, but is it going to get so complicated that, you know, no one can use it? And I think that's, you know, my vision for version 4 is let's pare down all the combinations of BNOs. And, oh my God, no more using the Arduino A to D converter. If someone wants to their Arduino A to D converter, great, use version 3. But if you're going to use version 4, like I really struggle with the BNO right on the auto steer board. Should we include it? Should we not include it? We can have that discussion on Telegram. But I'm hoping we could get down to 1 or 2, a USB INO and an Ethernet INO. You know, and then there's the ESP one, which is great. But then if somebody says, well, my setup doesn't work, well, did you wire wrap it? You know, are you using a Commodore 64 to run your auto steer? There's so many combinations, but if we can narrow that down to being a limited set of hardware, I think that'll make the discussion so much easier.
Okay, I think that almost segues us into a little bit of the other part. So Brian's been doing all of the work on the programming and that other side. So maybe it's time for the rest of us to bring the documentation up to snuff. And we've been like, this is every single video meeting we talk about that, about updating the wiki and this, that, and the other thing. So I just kind of want to, a few times ago, we put that out there, let's say, who's going to edit the wiki? Nobody wanted to. So now there's questions, do we even get rid of Andreas's wiki? He's not here to say anything. Right now it's on Discourse. That one's kind of trickier, but we can make anybody edit that one. In any way we go, we will need good documentation for it to be easy for anybody to access, make it accessible to anybody, and then hopefully that eliminates all of these other questions, right? Like, if this, then what happens? And I'm having an issue with this. So I think the only thing that I would need help with, there's some questions as far as a schematic of the PCB board, hooking it up, because there's a bunch of extra slots on there, right, that are just designed inherent for future growth and future possibilities. So if somebody out there is good at doing a fritzing diagram of the current PCB board, that might be maybe a great first step, and then plopping that up on the Discourse group. Any thoughts on that?
There isn't a current PCB board. The version 2 I made, it doesn't have the encoder input. It doesn't have some of these other things. I know the board Andreas has made, the new one, made the row coat board. It doesn't have any input protection, and it has some limitations in that regards.
The one Doppelgrau made is not doable by hand. You can solder it by hand. You must buy it ready-made.
Yeah. So what is our go-to board?
Last time we said the go-to board was V2, but Johannes has one, Andreas has one, so I don't know. I still think it's V2. That's what it says everywhere else, but I think Brian, I think you just need to say what is our go-to board, and we'll go with what you say.
V3.
Yeah.
V3.
V3. Yeah.
Well, we really should have a board. I mean, there's a lot of boards out there, but we really should have a board that is in the documentation that says build this.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Build this board, put this MMA on, put this ADS 1115 on, use the brick or use dual antenna, and here's the software. Go. That would be my vision.
Excellent.
Now your wiki is from 200 pages down to 5.
I like it.
So true.
Because my version 3 board has fused the wheel angle sensor power supply. It's fused on the PCB. Right now, if somebody shorts out the supply for the wheel angle sensor, well, it's going to take out probably going to take out the regulator, or take out.
I've done that.
And it uses the little ATC mini fuses. That sort of thing. Just simple protection. And I don't think any of the encoders out there. Oh, one quick question about the encoder. Do people use just a reed switch on the steering column, or is it an actual motor shaft encoder? Because I don't really see the need to have to set too many pulses unless you have a high something. I know it's off. I can ask them on Telegram.
Coffee Track uses the encoder, and I think on the wiki, on Andreas' wiki, he mentioned which one he took.
He used a physical encoder.
Yeah. Yeah, it's when you pull up the steering wheel and put in the encoder and put the steering wheel back, and that's all. It's a really nice product. I think it's mentioned on the Andreas wiki. Coffee Break used it.
Yeah, I checked that one too, but it was, for me here in Holland, it was about €500 for the encoder, so I quit. And my plan, because I use hydraulic steering, my plan is to install a 6.2 valve with some OR valve, so I can install a pressure switch that if you grab the wheel manually left or right, it will detect it, and then with the pressure spike, it will disengage the other steer.
I think our biggest problem is we always have new ideas.
Yep.
And for all the people that using motors on the steering, there could be also some sort of software encoder. So if the wheel angle sensor detects too much turning without the motor engaged, someone must be using the steering wheel, and then we can shoot whatever shut off. Of course, there needs to be some sort of tolerances, because the sensors aren't perfect, and of course in the mechanics we have some play, but basically at least large steering actions we should be able to detect.
Yep. True.
Okay. We got about 3 or 4 minutes here. There's a whole pile of stuff. Of course, we can't get to it all. I think if we go with V3 board, we put our input in there. I think we can move forward with that. One other just quick cosmetic thing. I've had a few comments come through as far as what people's first entry point is into AgOpenGPS, as far as where they are directed to. So I think, Brian, you're directing everybody to the discourse group. And then I noticed that if you Google AgOpenGPS, I think it takes you to your Jim Doe site. And
I should delete that. I should just delete that thing.
Well, I don't know. I was going to say you could keep it, but then instead of directing to the Combine forum, then maybe direct it to the discourse group. I'm not sure. Anyhow, I
lost the password. I don't even know how to delete this stupid thing. I'm gonna have to go blow up some servers. I shouldn't say that online.
That answers the question, then, I guess.
Yeah, I'll try to get rid of it.
It's up to you what you do with it. I'm just thinking that if I know on the Telegram group, I just if stuff goes there, it's great for quick back and forth. But a lot of times new ideas come up there, and that might be great for everybody to see, but they get lost. And it'd be nice to have kind of a record for them, right? That other people can see that too. Yeah, I don't know. That's my 2 cents. But I'm going to throw a quick poll up here. Is there anything else you wanted to show us about version 4? And then we'll kind of wrap it up with that.
Well, I think, yeah, go on, Brian.
No, I think, it's just like the day and night mode where, it detects sunset and sunrise all over the world and things. It's just some of the things that I've kind of wanted to put in a version, and updating like the vehicle files, the tool files, and the environment files. That's something that is going to, you can't change a version, kind of. You have to completely say nothing is compatible, because go will be compatible, but nothing else will be compatible, including the INOs, including the board. Everything will change for version 4. So I think like going to take the time to make sure version 4 does everything we want it to do and is big enough to grow within until version 5 comes out. But I think it's a really good change, some of these things, especially like setting the Arduino and kind of taking the next step. And just those nice things like day mode and night mode and stuff like that.
Just one detail I just get into. Call the PCB also version 4.
Yeah.
Yeah, not bad.
V4 goes with V4.
Yep.
Oh, I have to change my comment in the chat then. All right, I throw a poll up there. If you guys wouldn't mind just answering that, that would be great. And we can try that time out if it works. And if people don't like it, we can find a different time, but we'll throw that up there. Do you guys want to meet in 2 weeks? Is that would that be fair? Yeah, what do you guys think?
It's fine for me.
Yep.
Yeah, 2 weeks, but maybe 2 hours later because it's the early evening. Normally I'm feeding the pigs at this time. 2 hours later, maybe.
Okay.
Monday is perfect. 2 hours later.
All right.
Who's feeding the pigs now?
Who's feeding the pigs now?
You're going hungry.
They are going to get hungry.
No, I've already been.
Ist eine große Schweinerei.
They're alive, yeah. Okay. Just a question. I don't know if you have some minutes left. I didn't get the problem with the multi-boundary. What is the problem programming it?
Sorry?
Programming multiple outer boundaries. The version of Daniel. What is wrong with it?
Do we have another hour?
Me, yes, but the Zoom meeting maybe not.
The problem with multiple boundaries, it's not a problem. The problem is multiple inner boundaries to fit in all the multiple outer boundaries. And there was no real good GUI way of referencing them, the inner boundaries with the outer boundary. If you just have a bunch of outer boundaries, then you can just step through them and figure out where you are and are you in the boundary, are you out of the boundary, that sort of thing. But the problem is having inner boundaries and in the GUI trying to relate the inner boundaries to the outer boundaries. We tried this about for 3 months, and I worked and worked and worked on it, and it just gets exponentially impossible.
Okay. We have numbers for our fields using by the government, and so it might be possible to take the number of the field of the outer boundary and use this as reference for the inner boundaries. So if it's field number 7, the inner boundary number 7 belongs to the outer boundary number 7.
I have a better way, I think. You know how we do touch lines?
Yeah.
Have a configurable screen that draws all the individual fields, like say it's 1 kilometer region. It'll draw the boundaries on the screen. Touch the field you want and it'll open.
Okay, yeah, would also be good, yeah.
Because
the Defend does it this way. You load all the fields in your system, and when you're entering the GPS position of the field, the dialog box come up and you ask you want to use this field. Because sometimes if I have 2 fields next to each other, I work them together with the field road in the middle and use the same IB line. And in this case, I won't change the field. I use one field for both, for working on both. But normally it could be like this, yeah.
Yeah, see, that was that question. Should we store AB lines with the field or globally? But then you have 50 AB lines and you can't identify.
Yeah, don't like it. Defend does it with the field, and I think it's okay because normally you have about 5 lines per field if they are not rectangular. So yeah, store the IB lines with the field. It's the right say.
You can always clone a field, and then you have the AB lines.
Yeah. Well, there's another concept is to have a directory of field templates, and then your working field is a different directory where a template to open a field as opposed to, you know, starting a field like on its own. It's poor explanation, but you know, like when you have an Excel template, you know, of a bill, or like a Word document, when you have letterhead, that sort of thing, you open a template to start a new document. Well, you can open a template of the field, which contains just the boundaries and the AB lines and all that sort of stuff. It's kind of an extension of what's there now, but maybe a little more intuitive, where you use a template to create a job.
All right. I think what we'll do is we'll kind of wrap things up for today. Thanks everybody for joining us today. And I hope that if you have stuff you wanted to discuss but we didn't talk about today, put it up on the discourse group and in comments to this meeting. Then we'll try and include those for next time. And yeah, have a great day for the rest of you, and we'll see you guys next time. But oh yeah, Brian,
before you go, who is in charge of the wiki? Who can we blame?
It's a tricky part. Where do we build the wiki? GitHub, Discourse, own page, web space. I really don't know. Tell
YouTube.
Me. YouTube. Yeah. Where do we store the wiki?
Can we store it at GitHub in Brian's place? Is it possible? Yeah. I don't know if there's a GitHub.
Is that the best place? But I think the person in charge should figure that out. Nobody wants to do it.
I want to start with it. I can do it all alone. I want to start with it.
Yeah, that's the good part about being the boss, is you don't have to do anything.
Well, maybe you do too much then.
Yeah, it hasn't worked out so well for me.
No. I will start with it. We talk about it later on Telegram, Brian. I'll be
just someone to organize it. The go-to person to organize it, I think, is kind of what's missing.
Yes.
Cool.
And if it's there and stay it up and update it as well, it's not the biggest problem. But you have to start with a new one, get rid of the old one directly. I mean, yesterday, and then get a fresh and new wiki, simple maybe first, and then get it out, explain it, make it bigger, and but first start. That should be a good one.
All right. Yeah. Thank you, Richard. I think maybe if you want it for a month and you don't like it after that, then maybe dish it out to somebody else. But I'll be happy to tag team on that with you. So good. Thank you all for coming. And till next time, see you and have a great week.
Thank you. See you guys. Thanks.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.